Hey, this is Joe. I just received the Vevor heavy-duty sim racing cockpit. I have it here. We're going to open it up and we're going to assemble it. When FedEx dropped it off, he brought it up on a handcart, and when I got it, it was very heavy, so I had to use a handcart to bring it into the house. So let's open this thing up, see how it's packed. There's a couple tears in the box. Hopefully nothing is damaged on the inside. And we'll take a peek at how they packed it at Vevor, and then we'll do some assembling, and we'll see just how heavy duty this stand is. The reviews on Amazon were pretty good. Most people said they really liked it. It was quite heavy duty, and it didn't jiggle around or move a bit, so after we get it assembled, we'll check it out as well. I purchased this cockpit from Vevor directly on their website. You can also purchase it through Amazon. It was a bit cheaper buying it directly through the Vevor site. It was $319 plus tax, which came out to about $344 and change. I believe the price on Amazon is like $349, and then you'd have to pay the tax. So here it is opened. Let's start pulling some items out of the box, see how it's packed. Everything looks pretty much wrapped in plastic. Let's start pulling the seat out and some of the parts that need to be assembled. Interesting thing on the shipping. I ordered it this past weekend. They shipped it on Monday. It arrived the next early afternoon on Tuesday. So they shipped it FedEx overnight, which is quite nice. It looks like the seat comes in two parts. It is a reclining seat. Looks like we have a box of some hardware. We do have some seat belt and shoulder harnesses that come with the kit. And it looks like the frame assembly comes boxed in a separate box, so that's sort of nice. Let me get rid of the big box, and then we'll open up the frame assembly box and check that out. Looks like all the components in the frame assembly box look pretty decently packed. Everything is wrapped in bubble wrap. Here's the booklet for the assembly instructions. And we start out with a parts breakdown of all the components that are in the box. And what's really nice is there's a pictorial view of all of the assembly instructions as opposed to a bunch of text. So that's sort of nice. You can actually do your assembly just by looking at the pictures. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to take a peek at this, and then we're going to start assembling. I'm not going to film the entire assembly process. That'd be really boring for everyone. So I'm just going to come on and assemble bits and pieces, and then we'll do a little filming in between and show you as the assembly progresses. So let's get started. And looking at some of the square tube assembly here, let's take a measurement of the thickness of this square tube, and looks like it's 1/16 of an inch thereabouts, which is right around 16 gauge steel, which actually is pretty sturdy. So just wanted to show you that. Let's start in with the looking at the instructions and starting the assembly. The first part of the assembly is to take this piece right here, which is called the rear holder. It's the one with all the holes. The other piece is called the main bracket. It has the single hole, and the pipe goes down underneath on the bottom. The shorter edge goes on the top. What joins these two pieces together is this U-channel. It's really nice and beefy. It's 5/32 of an inch thick. What happens is you put one over the top, you join these together, and that bolts here, and then the one on the bottom bolts on like that. And you use M8 by 55 millimeter bolts and nuts to bolt these two channels together. One of the nice things about packaging is they individually bag the bolts. For example, here's M8 by 50 and they're labeled. The M8 by 55 is not labeled, but there's 22 of them, so you know that this is the bag because there's quite a few in there. So to put the U-channel brackets on, we need 2 M8 by 55s for each U-shaped bracket. The next step is to bolt on with the M8 by 55 millimeter bolts the cross braces, which are referred to in the manual as front holders, and tighten those up. Make sure you put washers underneath the heads of each bolt, not only on the main bracket, the rear holder, but also on the bolts on the front holder. Let me show you another view from the front. This is the front view of the assembly so far. Next, we have to bolt the pedal holders to the frame. On the side here in the front, there's 2 bolt holes. Your pedal holders here, notice there is a U-channel right here, and there is a slider along here. So this is how you can adjust your front pedal plate. So you can then slide this back and forth here. Of course, once you get this on and you mount your pedal plate and put your pedal assembly on, you can then adjust it to match your driving position. But what we're going to do is we're going to put the bolts in through the holes from the outside, then through this track right here, and then we're going to put the nuts on the inside and tighten those up. So let me do that, and then I'll come back and show you it completely assembled. We have the pedal brackets, or what are referred to in the manual as pedal holders, bolted in, and for me, I have long legs, so I've moved these brackets all the way forward. If I have to adjust them, then I can just loosen the nuts and slide the brackets back. What we're going to need now is get the small bag with a lot of short bolts. These are M8 by 16s. And then what you're going to get is you're going to get the pedal plate, and if you notice on the side there are 2 holes with nut plates on the back side. So what we're going to do now is we're going to mount the pedal plate in between the 2 pedal holder brackets, and then using the M8 by 16 bolts we're going to attach the pedal plate to the pedal holders. One thing you'll notice is on the rear portion of the bracket there's a single screw, and on the front bracket there's a series of holes in an arc, and that's so you got to spread these brackets a little bit apart. That's so you can adjust the front height on the pedal plate to the position that is comfortable for your feet. So let me stretch these brackets a little bit, and we'll mount this pedal plate, and then I'll show you the assembled pedal plate on the pedal holders. We have the pedal plate mounted to the pedal holders. One thing I noticed, you have to make sure that these pedal plates are slid so that the holes line up equally on each side. Otherwise you're going to have a heck of a time getting this aligned. I have the bolts in just loose because when I mount the pedals to the pedal plate and sit in the seat, I won't want to make minor adjustments to fit my leg position. So we'll just leave these loose for the time being. Now we have the left and right supporting rods. These are the brackets that are going to be used to mount your steering wheel. So there's 2 holes in the front, and those brackets are going to be mounted in the front 2 holes with M8 by 55 washers and nuts. So let's go ahead and mount them on each side. We now have the left and right supporting rods bolted to the frame. The next we have left and right. The manual calls them armrests, but they aren't really armrests. They slide in to the support brackets so you can adjust the height of your steering wheel. Let me swing the camera around and show you how we're going to mount these. First thing, we want to take the what are referred to as armrests. Notice there's a series of nut-plated holes here. We're going to insert that into the supporting arms, and we'll take two M8 by 16 bolts with washers. And then what we're going to do is come down, and for now we'll just mount them in the highest holes. And then later, when we get all the controls mounted and the seat on, we'll make final adjustments to all the height and length of all of these adjustments on the frame. So that's how that mounts. You can then tighten those down. It'll keep it from sliding. We have the armrests and the support rods in place, and I have them up to the highest point and just snug down. Again, we'll adjust these after we mount all the controls. We have the steering wheel plate mounted. 4 screws. One of them has an adjusting arc where you can angle the steering wheel plate. There's 4 bolts, M8 by 50 with washers and nuts. The next step is to mount all the casters. These aren't your traditional casters with the click in to lock. There's a looks like a locking nut, and it's threaded. So that means on the bottom of the frame there's some nut plates in there. So we'll just lay the frame on its side, screw in the casters, and then tighten them down with the wrench. I'll do this off camera, and then I'll show you the casters mounted when we're finished. We have the casters screwed on. All we had to do was flip the card on its side, screw in the casters, tighten it down with the provided wrench. Let's flip it back up and continue with the steps. We have the gear shift base on. There's this little bracket on here on the edge. It sticks up just a tiny bit. That mounts on with M8 by 16s with nut plates. And then the arm here that mounts to your frame mounts on with M8 by 50, and that goes into washers and nuts. And the same thing down here on the base frame. These are M8 by 55 washers and nuts. That screws right on. If you're over in the UK or another location where they drive on the other side of the road, you of course can mount this on either side. Now we're going to mount the seat rails or seat braces. Notice there's 3 holes on each bracket. So I'm assuming, and the manual does not indicate which holes to mount these to. So I'm assuming it has to do with an adjustment on how long your legs are. So for me, I have long legs. I'm going to mount these to the rear 2 holes. If you notice on the bracket, there's some countersinking on there, so you want to make sure that the countersink holes are facing up. Then what you want to do is you want to take your M8 by 16 and tighten all of these mounting brackets. Now one thing, you want the little U shape facing forward when you're mounting these brackets. When you unpack the seat, there's a separate set of instructions for seat assembly. And then you go back to the original manual for instructions on how to mount the actual base of the seat to the frame. So you're going to have a couple sets of instructions here. So let's go ahead and I'll show you how we're going to put the seat together. The small box that came packed by itself inside the larger shipping box are all of your seat components. And there's even a small bag of hardware here. And again, this is specifically for the seat. The first part of the seat assembly, this is the right-hand side of the seat. At the bottom of the seat, there's 2 holes. In the bag of hardware, there's an M8 by 25. There's a plastic washer for each side on this. This is your reclining lever right here. Underneath the plate on the bolt, you want to put that plastic washer underneath this plate before the bolt goes into the hole. The front bolt goes in without the washer, and then you tighten these down. Let's flip the seat over to the other side and put the other bracket on. On the left hand side of the seat, the other bracket goes, and again underneath the plate, the bolt goes through the plate. The plastic washer then goes onto the bolt and into the seat. Again, the front bolt, these are M8 by 25s, then bolt in to the bottom of the seat. Now we have the brackets mounted to the seat. Now we can move on and mount the upper portion of the seat to the base of the seat. Just like on the bottom side, on the left hand side of the seat, we have 2 mounting bolts, M8 by 25. They screw in to the 2 holes at the base of the upper portion of the seat. Let's flip the seat around. Let's get the 2 bolts on the other side, which is your reclining arm section. On the right hand side of the seat, with the reclining lever and bracket, 2 screws, M8 by 25, screw them in, tighten them up. Your seat back is now mounted to the seat base. All 4 screws have been tightened. Now you can put the plastic covers on. Get yourself a screwdriver. This thing's a piece of junk. You need to be able to get in and twist it without. If you're rotating, this is a pain in the butt. So get yourself a flashlight. Align the holes in the lower bracket and the upper bracket. Put the screw in and then use a screwdriver. Hold the bracket with your fingers. Use a screwdriver to tighten the screw. If you don't use a flashlight, it's going to be really hard to line up the holes in the 2 plastic brackets. So that if you do that, it will be a little bit easier. Mount your plastic covers. Let's flip the seat around and do the other side. Once you get your covers on, right here, there's a little plastic plug that will push in to a hole right here. Then you can take your little plastic caps and then take and push those little plastic caps in to fill in the holes. Push them really hard with your thumbs. The rail of the seat is ready to be mounted to the frame. If you notice on the seat brackets, there's these little slots, and there's a track on the underside of the seat. There's these little square inserts. What you're going to do is you're going to push a M8 by 16 bolt up through that slot right there. You're going to slide this square insert into the seat rail, and then you're going to screw the bolt from the bottom through this slot, and then that's how you mount the seat rail to the seat frame. So let's go ahead and do that, and I'll show you how it looks when it's done. To mount the rear seat to the seat rails or seat brackets, you're going to more than likely need a magnet. You have to slip that little square nut into the track, and there's 1 or 2 holes in the front and only 1 hole in the back on the rails. And then you're going to have to align the seat rail holes into the slots in that seat brackets. And sometimes what you're going to have to do, take a flashlight, align that square nut, and shine a light from underneath through the hole, and then you can get yourself a little magnet and slide that use the magnet to slide that square nut back and forth until it aligns with the hole in the bottom. Then you can run your M8 25 bolts or M8 16 bolts and just loosely tighten all 4 bolts before you make any final adjustments. Once all bolts are threaded into the square nuts, align the seat the way you want it and then tighten them down. They provided some Velcro strips that you can use to tie down your cabling with your console steering and wires with the pedals and the shifter. So The seat is complete now, and off camera I'm going to set up all the steering wheel, the pedals, and the shifter. Then I'll come back and show you how it looks. I've sat in it and tried to make some adjustments, and the seat is very sturdy. You can move around in it and everything is very tight. It doesn't jiggle. It seems like a really sturdy seat. So let me get all the controls, pedals, and steering wheel mounted, and then I'll come back and I'll show you what it looks like. I have the pedals, the steering wheel, and the shifter mounted on the sim cockpit, and everything is sturdy. What I did is, eventually I'm going to replace my G920 with a direct drive. So I just put some pieces of wood and or plexiglass underneath the controls to where the built-in clamps on the steering wheel and the shifter, and then just tightened them down. Then eventually when I replace with the direct drive and higher end pedals and shifter, then I can drill the holes and put them in. I zip tied all of the wires off to the side. Eventually I'm going to get a MetaQuest 3 and I'll use the VR setup. But for the time being, I'll just roll the sim cockpit around in front of the monitor, and I can then test it like that. So hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll see you next time.